Just 1 minute ago. The veil was lifted, after months of silence. The mysteries of the Yu MengLong case have finally been revealed. But what is the shocking truth behind his tragic fate? The answers are darker and more explosive than anyone imagined. Let's join Red Carpet Reveal to uncover the full story right now. The revelation came like a thunderclap, tearing through months of silence, suspicion, and sorrow. Just 1 minute ago. Endless speculation and unrelenting public pressure. The veil was finally lifted on the Yu MengLong case. For so long, the truth had seemed just out of reach, hidden behind carefully constructed lies, silenced witnesses, and a justice system that many accused of bowing to power. Then, in a dramatic twist, evidence and testimony emerged that pieced together the mystery surrounding his untimely death. The nation gasped, the world watched. The story of Yu MengLong shifted from tragedy to scandal that shook every corner of society. Yu MengLong had been more than just an actor or singer. To millions, he was a beacon of hope, a symbol of youthful ambition and undeniable talent. His smile lit screens, his performances brought audiences to tears, and his songs resonated in the hearts of fans across generations. That someone so adored, so seemingly untouchable, could be ripped from life in such a cruel and mysterious way was unthinkable. When news of his death first broke, fans refused to believe it. Rumors of foul play surfaced almost immediately. There were whispers of enemies in the industry, of broken contracts, of hidden grudges. Officials were quick to downplay speculation, citing vague statements that did little to satisfy public outrage. For months, the case lingered in a fog of confusion. Journalists pushed for answers, only to be met with silence. Fans demanded transparency, staging vigils that transformed into protests, their candles burning not just for Yu MengLong but for the truth itself. His family, devastated but determined, stood before cameras again and again, clutching his photo, begging for justice. "Tell us what happened to our son," his mother cried at one gathering, her voice breaking as thousands of supporters echoed her plea. The longer the silence stretched, the more the anger grew. Social media platforms became battlegrounds where fans shared theories, leaked documents, and supposed insider testimonies. Some claimed Yu MengLong had been threatened in the weeks before his death. Others insisted that the truth was buried because it implicated powerful figures who feared exposure. Hashtags demanding justice trended for weeks on end, uniting fans across nations, languages, and cultures. And then, at last, came the breakthrough. In a packed courtroom, under the glare of cameras and the weight of public expectation, new testimony shattered the silence. Witnesses who had once been silenced by fear came forward, emboldened by the relentless pressure of public opinion. Documents once hidden were unearthed, revealing timelines, payments, and connections that painted a damning picture. Most shocking of all, the killer himself confessed, his words carrying the chill of finality. For the first time, the world heard a step-by-step account of Yu MengLong's final night. The details were excruciating. Described the confrontation, the rising tension, the shouts that filled the air. He admitted to striking the blows, to watching the life drain from the man who had once seemed larger than life. His tone shifted between remorse and detachment, leaving many to wonder whether he truly sought forgiveness or merely sought to control the narrative. But it was his description of Yu MengLong's final moments, the pleas, the fear, the desperate struggle, that broke the nation's heart all over again. The courtroom erupted. Gasps and sobs echoed through the chamber. Yu MengLong's mother collapsed into her husband's arms, wailing in grief. His father stood, his voice trembling with rage as he shouted, "You speak of his death as if it were a story. But this was our son. You took his life, and now you dare to speak of it so coldly?" The killer looked down, avoiding his gaze. But the words hung in the air like daggers. Outside, chaos ignited. Crowds who had gathered for days erupted when the confession was broadcast live. Some screamed in fury. Others fell to their knees in despair, while many simply shouted his name in defiance. Yu MengLong was no longer just a star who had been taken too soon. He was the face of injustice, the symbol of a fight that reached far beyond his own life. Social media platforms exploded within minutes. Hashtags like "Truth for Yu" and "Justice for MengLong" trended globally. Videos of the family's heartbreak spread like wildfire, becoming the pain of millions. But if the confession provided answers, it also raised new and darker questions. Why had it taken so long? What forces had kept the truth buried for months? And why did the killer's account seem carefully edited, leaving gaps in the timeline? Avoiding mention of certain names, legal experts immediately pointed out inconsistencies. Journalists dissected his every word, quoting phrases that seemed rehearsed, pauses that felt unnatural. Some argue that the confession, while shocking, was not the whole truth. It was, perhaps, just enough truth to pacify the public while protecting those in power. For Yu MengLong's family, the revelation was both devastating and galvanizing. They had finally heard the truth of how their son had died. Knowledge brought no peace. Instead, it reignited their determination. "This is not the end," his father declared outside the courthouse, his voice hoarse but defiant. "Beginning. We will not stop until every person responsible for our son's death is exposed." His words ignited the crowd. Of justice for you, rising like thunder. Days that followed, the protests swelled. What began as mourning transformed into a movement. Streets filled with banners, chants, and music. Yu MengLong's songs were played from loudspeakers. His voice carried on the wind as fans sang in unison. His image was projected onto skyscrapers, onto murals, etched into the hearts of millions. He was no longer just a victim, he was a martyr. Point for a nation that refused to be silenced. But even as the people united, the sense of unease grew. Journalists continued to uncover links between the killer and figures in the entertainment and business elite. Leaked bank records hinted at bribes and hush money. Whistleblowers claimed evidence had been destroyed, witnesses threatened, and investigators silenced. The revelation that came 1 minute ago was monumental, but it was only a piece of a larger puzzle. The nation knew it. As night fell, vigils glowed across the country. Thousands gathered in city squares, candles flickering like stars against the darkness. They sang his songs, held his photo aloft, vowed to keep fighting. The killer had confessed. People demanded more. They wanted the full truth. They wanted justice not only for Yu MengLong, but for every voice that had ever been silenced by power. The revelation had torn away the first veil. It lay a deeper, darker mystery. And the nation, united in fury and grief, would not rest until every secret was brought into the light. The confession that shook the nation was not the end of the Yu MengLong case. It was the beginning of a reckoning. The words spoken in that courtroom echoed far beyond its walls, rippling through streets, homes, and across borders. For some, the killer's admission provided a bitter sense of closure. For most, it only deepened the fury, raising suspicions that the so-called whole truth was anything but complete. In the days following the confession, protests grew larger and louder. What had begun as vigils now transformed into a tidal wave of defiance. Tens of thousands flooded the squares of Beijing, Shanghai, and Guangzhou, chanting Yu MengLong's name and demanding accountability from not just the killer but every hidden hand involved. They carried placards with his face, lit candles in his memory, and sang his songs as anthems of protest. What united them was not only grief for a fallen star but outrage at a system that seemed determined to silence truth with money, intimidation, and half-truths. Experts debated endlessly on television panels. Some argued that the confession was a turning point, a chance for justice to finally be served. Others dismissed it as a performance, a carefully crafted narrative designed to shield powerful figures from exposure. They pointed out the glaring gaps, missing hours in the timeline, vague descriptions of supposed motives, and the omission of key names long suspected of being involved. The more they dissected the confession, the more it seemed like a fragment of the truth rather than the whole story. Journalists dug deeper. Leaked documents revealed suspicious transactions, large sums transferred shortly after Yu MengLong's death. Funds that appeared to connect the killer to entertainment executives and shadowy business networks. Former employees of major studios whispered of blacklists, threats, and toxic contracts that Yu MengLong had tried to resist. Whistleblowers claimed that evidence had been destroyed in the weeks following his death, and that investigators had been pressured to close the case quietly. Every revelation fueled the fury, convincing the public that Yu MengLong's death was not a random tragedy but part of a much larger, darker web. For his family, the days after the confession were unbearable. His mother, already fragile from months of grief, through tears at a rally, "They revealed what happened to my son. But they have not revealed why. Not revealed who else is guilty." They think they can silence us with one confession. But they are wrong. We will never stop fighting. Her voice trembled but did not falter. Her words carried across loudspeakers and replayed millions of times online. She had been beaten, threatened, offered hush money in the past. Yet her resilience made her a heroine in the eyes of the nation. His father stood beside her, his anger channeled into determination. "If you think this story is over, you are mistaken," he declared. "This is only the beginning. They may have confessed to killing our son, but the true killers are those who tried to bury the truth. We will expose them." The crowd roared in response, their chants echoing into the night like thunder. Globally, the story continued to grow. In Paris, mourners lit candles beneath the Eiffel Tower, chanting in unison for justice. In New York, Times Square flashed with Yu MengLong's face. Massive billboards bearing the words "Truth cannot be silenced." In Seoul, fans gathered to sing his songs in tribute, voices trembling but powerful. Across continents, his death became a symbol of a universal struggle, the fight against corruption, injustice, and the silencing of truth. Celebrities around the world lent their voices. Musicians dedicated performances to him. Actors condemned the system that had failed him. Activists warned that his case represented something far larger than one man's death. Documentaries began production, makers racing to capture the scale of the movement he had inspired. Yu MengLong, once simply a star, became a martyr whose legacy extended beyond screens and stages into the very fabric of social change. Authorities, however, struggled to contain the storm. Police were deployed to disperse protests, but every clash only fanned the flames. Videos of officers dragging grieving fans away went viral, sparking fresh outrage. Attempts to censor social media failed as millions found ways to share their anger despite restrictions. The government promised reforms, promising transparency and accountability. But the people no longer believed empty words. They demanded action. And until they saw it, they would not stop. Miller's fate remained uncertain, though his confession had sealed his guilt. Debates raged over his sentencing. Some called for the harshest possible punishment, seeing it as the only way to honor Yu MengLong's memory. Others argued that punishing him alone was insufficient. That true justice required exposing the entire system that had enabled his crime and the cover-up that followed. Words had opened the door, but until every shadow was illuminated, people refused to consider the case closed. Meanwhile, Yu MengLong's art experienced a rebirth. His music topped charts once more, played not only for nostalgia but as protest songs. His films were rescreened, theaters packed with fans who wept at his performances, knowing what had been stolen from them. Murals of his face appeared across city walls, his image painted with halos, crowns, or flames, symbols of both his martyrdom and the fire he had ignited. He was no longer just a man but a movement, living on in the chants of protesters, the tears of his parents, and the determination of millions. Months after the confession, the fury showed no signs of fading. Anything, it grew stronger. Protests became more organized, moving into a movement with clear demands: protection for whistleblowers, accountability for officials, transparency in trials, and reform in the entertainment industry. Activists declared that Yu MengLong's death would not be in vain, that his story had become the catalyst for a new era of truth. Yet amidst the hope, the pain lingered. His mother often stood at vigils, holding his photo, whispering his name as the crowd around her chanted. Father's speeches grew sharper, warning that the fight for justice was not only for you but for every victim silenced by power. Their resilience inspired millions. Their grief was a constant reminder of the cost of corruption. The final image of this chapter in the Yu MengLong case was not of the killer or the courtroom, but of the people, millions united by fury and love, carrying candles that lit the night like a galaxy of stars. In those lights, Yu MengLong lived on. In those chants, his final cry was answered not with silence but with defiance. And in those hearts, his story became immortal. The truth had been revealed. The journey was not complete. The mystery of why remained unsolved. The deeper forces yet to be named. The people knew this. They accepted that the road ahead would be long and hard. They also knew that Yu MengLong had become more than a victim. He was a symbol, a movement, a promise. And until every shadow was exposed, until every hand that silenced him was revealed, the world would not rest. The mystery of Yu MengLong was no longer a secret. A revolution. The mysteries of Yu MengLong's case may have finally been revealed. The outrage they ignited continues to burn across the nation and the world. His death, once cloaked in silence, has become a rallying cry for truth, justice, accountability. Yu MengLong is no longer just a star lost too soon, he is a symbol of resistance. A voice that refuses to be silenced. A promise that the fight for justice will never end. Thank you for standing with us on this powerful journey. At Red Carpet Revealed, we remain committed to uncovering the truths that others try to bury and giving a voice to those who refuse to be silenced. Stay tuned, share your voice. Remember, Yu MengLong's story lives on in every heart that dares to demand justice.